From Axios.com, Trump sues CBS News for $10 billion.
With a B.
That's a B. Over Harris interview. Now, you may have heard the story because the corporate press was lying about it. Well, that's what they do. They said Donald Trump wanted to arrest CBS News arrested because interviewing Kamala was illegal. Of course, that is not what Donald Trump said. What Trump said was that the selective editing, the different versions that were released, were in essence aiding Kamala Harris. The first clips of the interview that came out made her look really bad. Maybe they didn't realize, I don't know, but she looked pretty bad. They then released a totally different response. According to the lawsuit, this is election interference. Axios says former President Trump filed a lawsuit against CBS News Thursday, alleging the network engaged in election interference by doctoring 60 Minutes interview with Vice President Harris. Trump is seeking $10 billion in damages for CBS alleged partisan and lawful acts of election and voter interference, which the lawsuit claims were intended to confuse the public and attempt to tip the scales towards Democrats in the 2024 presidential election. The lawsuit was first reported by Fox News. So we actually have it right here. This is the Scribd jury trial demanded. And it says this action concerns CBS's partisan unlawful acts. And let's go down a little bit and get the actual claims here. On October 20th, 2024, attempting unsuccessfully to stop the bad press without providing transparency, CBS News released a statement conceding that President Trump was accurate in his assertion that the interview with Kamala was doctored to confuse, deceive, and mislead the American people in order to try and interfere in the election on behalf of Kamala. As President Trump stated, and as made crystal clear in the video he referenced and attached, a giant fake news scam by CBS and 60 Minutes. Her real answer was crazy or dumb, so they actually replaced it with another answer in order to save her or at least make her look better. A fake news scam, which is totally illegal. Take away the CBS license. Now I have to wonder, maybe CBS did this not because of what Kamala said, but because of how it made them look as a news organization.
What do you mean?
They had a bomb of an interview. I mean, imagine you're like, we're going to sit down with the sitting vice president. And she just goes, people are going to be like, this is the worst garbage I've ever seen. How could you produce this?
Yeah.
So what if CBS was like, we need to make this more appealing?
Well, and especially if you don't push back sufficiently. So if this person is giving ridiculous non-answers and babbling on and they refuse to say anything about their actual policy positions and they generally sound moronic, and then you just sit there and don't push back against anything they're saying, it does look pretty bad for you. Or even worse, you pretend that what they're saying is compelling. I mean, Kamala Harris is very used to having her hand held by corporate media and being spoken to in the most gentle possible terms. This is why she considered it such an insult and why her fans considered it such an insult for Joe Rogan to not give her special treatment relative to Trump. To them, if they're not getting special treatment, they're being persecuted. So look, everyone knew that if anyone in the corporate press talked to her, they were going to baby her. And that's clearly what happened here. Though, to your point, Tim, if it was because they were embarrassed by their own performance, that wouldn't entirely shock me either.
To your point about about having her handheld and stuff, you saw that pretty clearly on display when she did the Brett Baer interview, and she was like essentially asking him to throw her a lifeline when she was like, you know what I mean, and he was just like, no,
Did you hear
I don't know what you mean.
Did you hear what Rogan said? That, and I'm trying to paraphrase it because I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I'm pretty sure what he was saying was that he knew if he traveled to her for the interview, her handlers would be in the room controlling how the show went. And I'll add to that, he wouldn't be able to pull up or fact check anything she says. So they knew they couldn't come in and sit down. See, here's the thing. Why does Kamala Harris go to call her daddy and Shannon Sharp at Breakfast Club? They don't fact check anything.
Exactly.
Rogan in real time says, Jamie, pull that up.
Well, and
it would be interesting to see if CBS says that they interview other people's interviews as well. I'm sorry, if they edit other people's interviews as well. Well, what would be the precedent for them to be doing this? Say, was it only Kamala or was it other people as well? That's something else to consider.
That might have to be their only defense. No, we do this all the time for everybody.
Oh, we had everyone's interview.
Yeah, it's all fake news.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's true. It's true. And to your point about her not wanting to be fact-checked, what her and other left-wing candidates do is they will just smugly state that something is misinformation or has been debunked, even when it hasn't, and oftentimes without ever providing a source for that claim.
Actually, Seamus, that claim has been debunked already.
Oh, no. All right, you got me. That makes it true.
I have no proof.
When you call something debunked, that means it isn't true. That's all you have to say.
That's right.
Yep.
And so it would be very embarrassing for her to plainly and arrogantly state that something was debunked and then have Joe pull the information up in front of her, Kamala can't respond to basic questions such as, how many people do you think have entered the country? She would completely crumble if she was fact-checked on air and shown to be wrong.
That's why she won't answer.
Exactly. But there's this other hilarious phenomenon we see with these left-wing pundits where they'll go, this is insane. J.D. Vance and Donald Trump said they didn't like the fact-checking at the debate. They speak about fact-checking as if there are these arbiters of truth who are totally non-biased and not bought into one side or the other when they clearly are all leftists who work for the corporate press or are adjacent to them. And then they act as if we have just found these oracles of pure truth who are going to fact-check everyone equally, and it's nonsense. People since the beginning of time have been claiming that their opponents said things that are factually incorrect. Yep. But for whatever reason, when you use this phrase, fact check, they fact checked him, it just shuts down all thinking. Oh, it was a fact checker? A fact checker said it? That's true. It must be true. How could it be? The guy, he's a fact checker. He says that he has the label. They gave him this label, fact checker. He checks the facts. He's right. Why disagree?
It's all fake, though, because people on the right have tried to create fact-checking organizations. It doesn't change anything. The left is a cult, and people on the right need to stop trying to suck up to these cult members.
That's right.
Like, it's the same thing with the Ryan James Gurdusky thing. Dude, I could have predicted this when he got offered a gig at CNN. Like, we all know where this is going. The cult is going to start bucking like chickens, hooting and screaming the moment you say anything out of line with their deranged worldview.
Yeah, being familiar with Ryan's content, I was surprised that he lasted that long. But it was good while it lasted. I mean, it was interesting I do actually like Abby Phillips' show on CNN, but
Why?
It was, I just find it more interesting than some of the other left-wing slop that's on CNN.
So it's a low bar. But I hear
it is a low bar. It is a low bar.
The bar is very low. Maybe underground.
Yeah, but I mean, it was the way that they kicked him off the show was just totally stupid.
But this is, I mean, this is the other thing too with the double standards we see in politics right now. Whenever legal action is taken against Trump, the fact that legal action was taken is proof that he's guilty of something. Whenever Trump or any Republican takes legal action against somebody else, that's lawfare and they're bullying.
Well, this is true for literally everything, though. I mean, for the longest time, anytime someone's accused of a crime, it's proof they did it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like people at J6, there are people who lost their jobs just for being indicted. There was nothing was proven. Doesn't matter anymore.
That's clearly a feature of the age of social media. Whereas if you hear something, that's enough for you to say, "Oh, I don't like that person," and so I'm sure they did it. And whether it be whichever side, it doesn't really matter. The presumption of innocence has entirely evaporated in the United States, and I mean that's a significant problem because the presumption of innocence is it's not only is it foundational to our legal system, but it also speaks to a high trust society. It's like we assume that people are generally good, and if we don't assume that, you're going to continue to see the degradation of trust in other people in your society, and that's part of the reason why you have to have more and more laws. If you have a society that's high trust, you have to have authority to push to make people do things, as opposed to you have a society where people just generally do the right thing. Then you don't need as many laws to tell people what they have to do. People are free to do what they want to do because you can trust them to be generally good people.
Now, another thing I think is interesting about all of this is not just the fact that CBS edited this. It shouldn't shock us that they would be carrying water for the Democratic candidate in an election, especially when they're running against Donald Trump, who's the most evil, fascistic dictator who has ever lived. But it's the fact that they felt a need to edit her answers, right? I mean, that really does speak to something. I don't think that this is a new phenomena. I don't think the media lying for Democratic candidates is unprecedented by any stretch of the imagination. But the fact is, even they think that she's so unlikable and incompetent that they have to edit their answers. So this isn't actually revelatory on a moral level. We already know that we already knew that these were immoral people and these were liars. This reveals that they believe they have a weak candidate here.
Indeed.
And that it feels political too. I mean, the content brain in me thinks that if she had such a bad interview, wouldn't you want to draw some of those eyeballs to your channel? Unless you just wanted to save Kamala.
I was watching some of the J.D. Vance on Rogan. The first 15 minutes are hilarious.
Yeah, it was cracking me up.
I
and
know,
he just seems like a normal, relatable guy.
He told a story about he was in a plane and he's a senator, and he's like with my kid, And it's like, people don't really know, but like, you're kind of a senator. And then his kid dropped a cookie and then said, oh, expletive. And then it's just like, everyone's looking around like, Senator, your son. It's a really funny story about, and it's wholesome too. It's like family and stuff.
Well, it wasn't just an expletive. It wasn't just, oh, expletive. It was like, well, expletive. Like, looks at his dad and says, well, expletive.
It was good. It was really good. The reason I bring that up is like, it is entertaining to watch JD Vance tell these stories. He's very normal. That's just it. And, watching it, he mentions like in 6 days, I think I'm going to win, because I think they recorded it yesterday or whatever. But, or I guess technically we're going to get the data 6 days, or who knows? We're not going to have no idea. But vibe check, I don't see how Kamala Harris wins this. I can understand shadow campaign, but in any real sense, this is what Ryan Long was asking the other day? If Kamala Harris ends up winning, then what is your argument for how she won, how they won this time, how Democrats won? And I'm like, I got nothing. Like in 2020, I could make a bunch of arguments. People didn't like Trump. COVID was bad. They wanted to change parties. If Kamala Harris somehow wins this, I'm going to be like, literally nothing makes sense. Just like the polls, the prediction models, sentiment on the ground, Trump flags in Philadelphia, in Philly, in central Philly. I'm like, I can certainly understand people are going to vote for Kamala Harris, but if she wins, I'd be like, I have no idea how that happened.
Well, and if she does,
because Republicans are winning early voting as well too, and they've been ballot harvesting too.
In certain areas, yeah. But what I would say is this: if Kamala does win, I would explain it by saying not enough people voted. Like, we needed to get people out there to vote, and they didn't. So this is what I'm saying to everyone in the audience now, especially young men. Young men have to get out and vote.
Young men aren't voting right now. The data that's come back is that young men aren't voting.
Exactly, and that's a big problem.
Men in general are coming in way behind women in early voting.
And that's a massive problem because men are far more likely to vote Republican.
Yep.
So if you're a young man watching this, if you are a man watching this, get out and vote. You have to get out and vote because it is possible for her to win. And if she does win, it's going to be because so many men stayed home.
Yep.
What I'm saying is if young men get out and vote, they can actually turn this around. Like, they can save this country. We have so many issues right now. And it's funny because I see all these memes where people will post videos of guys fighting in wars. And they'll go like, oh, me and the boys when some girl votes for Kamala because Taylor Swift endorsed her.
That's right.
And like, that's funny. But honestly, bro, the reality is that if that happens, it's because you didn't get out there and cancel out the vote of someone who only voted because Taylor Swift told them to. So you know what you got to do? For every person who went out and voted because Taylor Swift said they should vote for someone, you got to go out there and you got to make sure you cancel their vote out.
The data that I've seen so far in some of these swing states, people have been tweeting about, is that men are not voting at large enough numbers right now. Mm-hmm. Women are outvoting men, and that's always been true, that women are high propensity voters and men are low propensity voters. And so, look, man, you know what I see? I suppose that might be it. If the data comes back and shows that women voted at like 5 to 10 points higher than guys, then I can understand, okay, well, that's how Kamala Harris won, I guess.
Exactly.
The women went in the voting booth, winked at each other, and then voted against their family's wishes.
Exactly.
So, there you go.
So, fellas, get out there. You got to get out there and vote. You got to get out there and vote. Be a patriot. Be a real patriot.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.